This is the Social 7 panel. Welcome to the Art of Growth and the last week of our subtypes series, where we have been going through all 27 subtypes in the Enneagram, 3 subtypes per type. And we are concluding this season with a live instincts event. We're going to do question and answer. We're going to share some key learnings, and it is going to be phenomenal. So please join us live. You can get tickets at our website, www.theartofgrowth.org, or look for the link in the newsletter going out this week. Several of the panelists from this season will be there as well, and we want to do our best to help you take your next step in this world, because we have seen how much growth can happen through the instincts. Really excited for you all to hear from Suzanne York, who's going to share about the impact the instincts have had on her. And I'm excited that you all are going to hear about it, because hearing about it has just been such an incredible gift to us. If you haven't taken our free instincts test, you can do that now at www.theartofgrowth.org. You can also take our free Enneagram test there. We even have a youth Enneagram test on there now. And you can go there to find out about all of our work with organizations, training in emotional intelligence and the Enneagram. And you can even set up one-on-one coaching appointments there as well, or a discovery session, which includes a typing interview and some coaching introduction. So we look forward to hearing from you and assisting your growth journey however we can. Thank you so much for taking the deep dive with us this season, as this is our final episode of the 27 panels. And we've stayed consistent during this season with hearing from other people and learning from them. And then we'll turn a bit of a corner to get practical about what to do with some of this and how to move forward and grow through it. But for now, my friends, let's jump into today's episode with the Social 7 panel.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Social 7 podcast. I am so excited to have you with us. It has been an incredible pleasure and learning experience for us. Each type, when it meets the instinct, shows up a little bit differently. And this is what we're learning and learning so much about, is the difference between them. And so the self-preservation 7, the sexual 7, and the social 7 will have a lot of similarities, but also some distinct differences. And so that's what we're looking to explore with you today. So before we begin, would you introduce yourself and tell us where you are from?
Oh, I'll begin. My name's Conrad. I'm originally from South Africa, but now I stay in Masterton, New Zealand.
Hi, I'm Kai, and I'm actually from Singapore.
Hi, I am Anna, and I am based in Chicago.
All right. Well, welcome to each of you. As we begin, we're going to talk about how the 7 interacts with the social instinct. So all 3 aspects of the social instinct, which are reading and interpreting. So that's sort of looking around, picking up on the data from people, body language, what's happening there. Bonding and affiliating, like who are my people, who's my tribe, and checking in with different friends and family occasionally. And then also the contributing to the herd. What is my contribution, and making sure other people are contributing, and knowing how to use everybody's gifts and abilities within a particular group setting. So we're going to look at all of that. And as we begin, I'm curious to find out, how do you as a 7, with the core need of avoiding pain and pursuit of pleasure, how does that play out, interact with the sort of reading and interpreting of the group, of the people around you?
Well, for me personally, it is a thing of, I always read the room first, and I always make sure everyone is happy, because if they're happy, I'm happy. So I know where to place myself, which is a bit of a downside as well, because sometimes I shoot myself in the foot. And it could be painful sometimes, but at least they're happy. So that's basically what I do. I literally read facial expressions, body language, just to see if I didn't offend them or anything like that in the way that I just acted towards them.
Mm.
Yeah, for myself, I think it's a learned tool for me to read the room. I used to just inject myself into the group, and then I kind of regret being in a group if there's like some tension and it's something that I really want to avoid. I don't want to be in a group that has some tension that I feel very uncomfortable. So now when I go into a space and there's a group of people, I usually take a back seat and I will just see how they interact with one another first. I look at the body language and how much they are contributing to the group before I put myself into the group. So I am just collecting data at that point of time. And when I'm in a group, I'm constantly thinking all the time, like, what am I going to say? Am I going to say the right thing? Are they going to misinterpret what I'm saying? So that is the back of my mind. And it's kind of exhausting because I'm collecting data, processing the data. At the same time, I'm trying to be present with the group. So I'm not always very present.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a bit of a different experience for me. I definitely am very aware when I'm in groups. My former coworker said I had spidey sense. So I often am very aware of like what's happening in the room dynamic, but it's actually quite intuitive for me in terms of like, I don't feel like I'm working really hard, but I do notice that I have a desire to want to like amplify if things are like dull. So I feel like that's the pursuit of pleasure of like, how can we make this more fun, more energizing, like trying to inject it a bit. So that I definitely feel that. And I think the recognition of others' pain when it's in the group, I definitely pick up on that, which can be challenging too.
Yeah, I kind of resonate with what you say, you know. If there's a moment of silence, I kind of feel like I have to do something to engage the group. But there are times I feel like things that I do might exclude others from the group as well. And I'm also very aware of that. So I think it's based on experience. Sometimes I have to pull myself back and not to inject myself too much into it. And then all the attention is on me, but not on the group, or some people feel left out at the same time.
Yeah, I do agree there as well, because I feel kind of obligated to get everything fine. You know, it feels like it's my responsibility, which is not.
Yes, totally.
But it's just like, that's who I am. And I always look for the people that's on the outside and want to try to incorporate them and make them feel home. And sometimes I'm kind of stuck with those people. And I thought, like, how will I get this now to get going, you know?
Yeah, and that's what the pain is for me. If I'm stuck with that one person, trying to bring that person in a group, and then they go on and on and on, I do not know how to get out from that conversation. And I feel like, what do I do next? I don't want to say anything to offend this person, but I want to be back in a group, but I want to bring you back in the group. And then what do I do next? And then it's kind of playing in my mind. And it's very exhausting because like, I don't want to do the wrong thing because I want to have that really nice, engaging group dynamic.
Yes. That inner dialogue, it's exhausting in my head. It's constantly, I think I'm going mad because I have voices in my head, you know, what's right, what's wrong? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? You know, I recently had a situation where we have a little girl that we're looking after that's 8 years old, and she was not doing what she was needed to do. And I know I had to convey myself in a certain way, you know, getting the discipline ready. And my wife was trying to coach me because she's much better with that. She's a 4. But in the end of the day, it just felt so at a point where I was like, you don't know what's happening inside of me. There's so much tension. I don't know what to do. Yeah, I got to that point. And that shook me because people don't know what's going on in your mind. It's constantly going. I don't think I have a nothing box. You know, I am a man, but I don't think I have a nothing box. Everything is just rambling on and on and on.
I sense that especially when I want to try and fix things. If I am in pain or if I see someone in pain, it's a desire to like, I want to fix. I think that comes from that desire to get out of the pain. And that's definitely caused some challenges for me of like, no, we want it. Just how do we get out of it? How do we move?
I do agree, because with that situation as well, my wife kind of looked at me and was like, what did she do wrong? And I felt bad then just because I actually said what's going inside of me. She says, you never tell me what's going inside on, you know. Now, finally, I did tell her and it shocked her. And now I feel bad about that. And I'm trying to see what's the right way after that.
Oh, yeah. Well, once you're vulnerable as a 7, I mean, this is probably true for a lot of 7s. Once you do so, then you feel bad because you feel like you put it on them and they're going to feel lousy about it. So you're both managing your own stuff and trying to manage someone else's feelings as well. What you're describing, though, is really good because you're explaining how the social instinct is interacting with the 7 very well. Which is why sometimes they're called the counter type, is because your pleasure and your joy is very much in how the group is doing. And if they're doing well, then you're doing well. There's, Kyle, you were talking about holding back and kind of reading the group and waiting to enter in. And so this is all has to do with the kind of holding back a little bit on this sort of gluttony that is the vice of the 7 and finding its way through the group a bit more. And so that's kind of how it shows up, which definitely looks more counter type than, say, the sexual 7 or the self-preservation 7. So yeah, that's very helpful understanding that. Now let's talk about the next category, which is bonding and affiliating. How does that show up in you?
Even though I'm very outgoing, I'm very selective who I let into my inner circles, because I try to get people strategically into my inner circles that I know will help me. But it's always that struggle as well. You want to get the outside people in, but you need to put in boundaries. So that makes it sometimes very, very interesting for me with the dynamics, because not everyone can be my friend. I want everyone to be my friend, and I can't be everyone's friend. So yes, strategically looking at that, who needs to be there, who's going to help me actually go forward, and who's going to be lifelong friends. I look at that because that's really important for me. I still have friends as well that I call up that I've not seen for many years, but they played such an integral part in my life that I can't just say, sorry, you're not part of my life anymore. So that's very important. And sometimes it doesn't come back to me, They don't always contact me, but I feel like I need to contact them. I need to keep contact. I still need to just keep them in my life as far as possible.
Yeah.
That really resonates. It's a joke that my partner often will look at my phone and see how many people I've texted or been in touch with in the last, few days. And it's just scrolling. And I like having just light touches on a lot of people. But yeah. Conrad, as you were saying that, similarly, I have my core group, and those are the ones who I do allow to see truthfully that pain and to really see the bottom of my barrel when I get there. But I'm continuously and constantly in touch with a lot of people and have a lot of curiosity about what's happening with other people, how I can support them, how I can connect with them. But there's a tight group as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree. I think there are groups within groups. I would have a larger group, and then I have my own smaller group, which I'm comfortable with. And for my own smaller group, there are kind of unspoken criteria for myself. They can't be asking for a lot of time commitment, because that's not who I am. I like to be in going from groups to group, different groups, dealing with different people. So if I have someone who needs a lot of commitment from me, I think that's really hard for me to bring them into my own inner group. I do have a very small group, and they all understand we could go without speaking to one another for a few months, and we come back together. We just pick up from where we left off. I don't have to go through the whole dance again, go through what we've been doing the last few months and all that. Yeah, we can just pick it off right easily. Yeah. And of course, people with the same values as well. Because like I say, for me I do not want to have certain tension and conflict in the group. So if I do have people within my own group, it's usually people of the same values. Otherwise, I feel like I'm constantly needing to balance the group, and that's exhausting, and that's not what I want.
Yeah, I definitely do have that circles as well, because for me, I know you, we get together. People tell me I'm likable. So I get well together with people from different backgrounds and stuff. But then I got my friendship circles. But if you're really going to go intense into my life and deep at that, which I really want, then you become my brother and my sister. That's a whole new level. I will give my life for my brothers and my sisters, and I treat you as my brother and sister. I will look after you financially or whatever. I'll be there for you. And that's very, very important as well. I always said I was going to marry one of my sisters as well, in that sense. And my wife became one of my sisters the quickest. And yeah, that's basically how we just put for our relationship. It became more and more and more intense until we got married.
Well,
You bring up a really important aspect of the social instinct is this, high emphasis on friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, relationships is everything.
I just think that when I do find a small group that I'm really comfortable with, you go out on a limb for them. Like you will do things for them, and there's always constant checking in. I don't need to meet you all the time, but I will check in on you. I would take that time to actually check in on you to see how you're doing, to see if you're okay, even if you're not checking in on me. I do not need that, but I can go out for you. That's if I bring you into my group, into my trusted circle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If someone comes up into my head, I'm always, hey, send him a picture, or hey, I'm thinking of you, like sending you love. There's a lot of that. I also want to note, Kai, it sounds like you've felt this too. I like to be involved in groups, but I like my freedom. So I like to be able to have ownership over like my role in the group. So if it feels like it becomes a burden. And Joel's laughing because him and I have spoken about this. But if it becomes a burden, then I really don't like it. And it feels like it's holding me back or restraining me. But I love when I get to be involved in places and show up in an authentic way and support in an authentic way. I've been involved in a few places where I'm like, okay, I feel like this is not something I want to do anymore. And I have to like find my way out of it. So I'm much more selective now with what I'm involved in.
Yeah, it gets really time consuming. So if I look through my WhatsApp, I have so many groups. Like I don't know how I got in, but somehow I'm pulled into like different groups. Like people say, oh, I'm going to start a group, and you come on in and all that, and it gets exhausting. And there are times I have to like just excuse myself. It's kind of difficult because I don't like say no. But there are times I have to exit the group and say, I have other commitments. I'm so sorry. And I'm very apologetic. And then I have to get myself out of the group. But it feels good after that.
Yeah, the likability. I mean, it's like sevens bring good energy and a spark. So we get often, at least I get pulled into a lot of different places. But you have to manage your energy around it too.
Oh, yes. And that unspoken rule with WhatsApp, it's for me a big thing when I have to leave a group. I know most probably I have no more ties there. I don't have a function anymore. But it's the worst thing to say, delete.
I love this because this is highlighting both an aspect of the seven, but also the instinct that other sevens would not entirely relate to. Like, I join groups. So some have described themselves as serial group joiners, like they're just one after the other. And then also like the difficulty of leaving that group and having groups within groups. I love that. That's really fascinating. And then like really deep, long lasting friendships. And then this, I don't want to be stuck though. I hate that feeling of being trapped or stuck. That's seven, right? So that comes into that intelligence. So you see that playing around with each other a little bit, and there's a bit of a tension there. But the fact that you do all of this and have lots of groups that you join and have a hard time deleting one, like even though for some social might be their second instinct, it's not that difficult to leave a group or to, and not that enticing to join a lot of groups. So this is really fascinating because that is where it is different for other sevens. Let's talk about the third aspect of this instinct, which is contributing to others. And you've already started down that path in terms of paying attention to like, what am I bringing to the group and what are others bringing to the group? So say a little bit more about that.
I'm a leadership coach. And so I do some individual and then group work. And I'm finding that in this space, I bring a lot of like, what's possible, right? And like, let's imagine. And I think, especially if I can create an environment in a group that like allows people to dream and to think big and to like do silly games and like make them get out of their normal day to day. I think that that's something I really love. And I think is something that I've been fostering more because people don't get to play and to dream and to just step out of their like, routine. So that's been something that's come up for me recently.
For me personally, I call myself an ambivert because I can be just as introverted as what I can be extroverted, depending on the room, depending on what's the need. If there's no leadership, then I will take up leadership. I will take it further. If there is leadership and I can just fade into the background, I'm the happiest person also. So yes, it depends on what is needed. And what I found myself as well a lot of times is I caught myself in mediation roles between parties. And I'm constantly, even in my previous job where I was the store manager, I had 2 associates that did not get along. The one was highly trained, but she wasn't in a higher position, but she had more background, and the other person couldn't understand why she's not listening to him. And I had to mediate the whole thing and actually get them to work together, because that's the role of a manager, getting everyone to work together in harmony, getting a goal and reaching the goal, and making sure everyone is there in the same space and mind and on the same page as well.
I definitely resonate with that. I do look at the different groups I'm in. There are groups that I play passive role. I just hang back and let someone take the leadership. But there are groups that I do play in active roles. And actually the groups that I play in active roles, I find it's a lot more interesting, but also a lot more energy into it, because I have to actually think of how I want to structure the group, what I'm bringing to group in terms of like, okay, I'm preparing this content, I'm bringing this in, I'm doing a lot of engagement with them. How can I keep them engaged? How can I make sure that they walk away feeling that they have benefited from this group and that they are not going to leave my group? So the main thing is that I don't want them to leave my group, and that they are enjoying and being in a group and they are getting something from me. So that is like my main mission. Stay in a group. I'll take care of you. I'll give you something to stay on. I'll make sure that they have things to engage you. And I pour in all my heart and soul into this.
Yeah. Yep. So for me, when I'm the most comfortable is when I play second fiddle. I'm not actually a leader, but there's a place of influence for me, because I can bounce off people. I previously said to Joel as well, it's the easiest thing for me to be in a conversation and just listen. That's where that introvert comes in. I just listen, pick up what's the vibe in the room, and then I put all the little dots together and I build a bigger picture. And I said, this is actually what you all said together. And it's like, wow, how did you just do that?
Yeah,
But that's what you were saying the whole time.
Yeah, it seems obvious.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think to your point earlier, Conrad, being able to pick out or highlight like the uniqueness or beauty in other people and be able to draw connections between the people in a group is like one of my favorite things. Like, oh, did you guys know that she's a really good dancer? And I don't know, like drawing all these connections and like helping kind of foster the group dynamic that way too is such a joy.
Yeah, I do enjoy that role. I think it's like being that networker. We bring people together. So I used to host a lot of women's circle, and during the women's circle, I would start introducing one to another. By the end of the circle, I would say like, you should connect with this person, and then somehow their relationship blossom. But that's an internal part of me, and I feel so ashamed of saying this. It's like when they have something going on and they acknowledge that I play a part in it, that feels so good.
Oh yes. I don't want credit, but man, don't stop now. You just keep on.
That's awesome.
That is one of the things I've heard so much about Social Sevens, is that the appreciation, the sort of applause, that is something that really feeds the type quite a bit. That's fantastic. This was really helpful for me listening as a social, as a sexual 7 with social as my second. I can hear some of those aspects in myself, and then others I don't. And so this has been really enlightening to me to see that. We'll talk about this next instinct, which is the second to your sequencing. And this one tends to be more neutral. It doesn't create nearly as much of a problem as the third does for us. And so talk to me about the second and how you use it.
For me personally, it's the sexual. So it's the one-on-one. Everyone told me I have the personality for retail. Now, I did good in the jewelry industry. It was awesome sitting with young couples and just hearing their stories, and hearing where they want to go and getting the picture of the design of the ring together. And then you take it a bit further. Did you guys, consider marriage counseling? What is marriage counseling? And then you just go through that and you just impart a bit with them. So that one-on-one sparks a lot in me, because I always want depth. I don't just want to be, on the surface talking about the weather and how beautiful this is or whatever. I want to go into the deep and the wonderful things of who makes us who, in that sense. I love that. That's where the social comes really in. And even just to, like I said, in the retails, it's to get to a sale, but it's not just the sale, it's the relationship in the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's my sexual instinct. That is my second. And I didn't actually quite realize it until recently that a lot of people usually come to me because they have some issues or they need someone to listen to them. And I do have the connection, we go deep into it. But sometimes it's also painful because I do not know how to get out of it, because we can have a conversation for 3 hours and 80% of the time I'm just listening to the person. So I become the unspoken counselor in the group, because people come
soundboard.
Yeah, they'll come to you and say, oh, listen to me and all that. And I've trained myself to really stay present and listen. So, yeah, that's part of it. But if the conversation turns interesting, it's always the back of my mind. It's how do I bring this person into my group so that they can benefit from it and others can benefit from them as well.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Also running the back of my mind. But if they are not, then I'm just there, just listening to them. And unfortunately, again, I'm few. So Ashian was saying this is how do I get out of this conversation?
Yeah.
So sexual is also my second. And I found the more of my own personal growth, this is becoming more natural. I think it used to be harder to sit with someone who was in a really hard place, or to just be connected in kind of this intimate way. But I'm finding as I'm doing more work and as I have my own practices, and I'm seeing the power in it, and I'm seeing the power of going deep with individuals, so that it's actually more useful in the group to, I don't know, there's something that the way it connects to my social piece too. But it's definitely hard, especially if people are in harder places. When I feel like someone's stuck or sitting in a tough place, it's again that instinct to want to move out of it.
Mm. One thing for me that the Enneagram really, really assisted me with is my relationship with my wife. Because the one-on-one instinct is there always to go and help someone. Mm-hmm. If they're in a tough time, I'm there. But when my wife goes through something, I always felt like I'm lacking empathy because I can't change the circumstance. I can't do anything for it. So I literally shut down and I become cold. And I always thought what's wrong with me? And I had that guilt and so on. And then I got to know about the Enneagram and the seventh. And I actually realized, I'm just wired. If I can't change the situation, I shut down and not waste energy on that. So now I approach it differently, and I can always see where I can maybe support my wife differently. I can't change the situation, but I can be there for her.
One of the things my wife said to me was she never imagined me doing coaching. And then she said that I know the reason why. I said, I don't know why I can suddenly do coaching. Well, I never imagined I could ever do this. And she said, that's because you know how to fix the situations. That's because you have tools now. You didn't have them before. And
that's true.
It's oh my gosh, I felt so exposed, in a good way. I felt really good. Oh, you're right. That does make sense of the way I'm wired, and that it opens up having a tool. So what you just said, having a tool actually opens up the heart. It's okay, now I can do a little bit more of this empathy, this feeling thing, because I have something I can contribute here that helps move it forward and not be stuck. Because I think that's the fear that all of us, the sevens, have, is the feeling of being stuck and the feeling of being immobilized by the situation that's in front of us. It feels very death to us. So being able to move it forward then allows us, okay, now I can engage my heart again, moving forward.
Yep.
But I really appreciated your insight behind how it serves. Kai, you said in the back of my mind, it's always how does this serve the group? That's a helpful way of putting that, because that's the difference between your first and your second, is one tends to be in service of the other.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think the power of the social seven can come in dropping into the body and the heart, because it takes us out of that head type. And I noticed that of wow, okay, when I let go of these expectations to control a group or to have influence, and just drop in, it comes from a more aligned place, my influence or my support. That's been another thing.
Yes, very good. That's great segue to move to the third, which is the neglected instinct, because you're talking about growth and you're talking about how when you're getting yourself out of your head and you're getting yourself more into your heart and your body, there's this sort of dropping that also happens with the instincts. Like you can, in the instinctual realm, we can stay, if we're social dominant, we can stay in the social realm and actually kind of push that too much. Like you said, you've got a million circles you're involved in WhatsApp, and you can be perpetually like meeting after meeting. And as you begin to drop more into the body, you're starting to get a little bit more to the self-pres realm as well. So self-pres kind of brings out that body piece of it and stuff that has to do much more with the practical realm. So talk to me about this third. All three of you have that as your third, the neglected instinct. And what problems? So the question is, what problems has it caused you, and how have you grown through it? I'm really laughing.
Okay, all right, I'll start. One of my strengths is loyalty, and it's my biggest weakness as well. And the reason for that is because of the social aspect. So I have a hard time saying no. But that's where the lack of the self-preservation comes in, because I don't put in boundaries, because I don't look after myself. If they're happy, I'm in a good space. And that's not always true. So that's where I shoot myself in the foot constantly. And my wife she's a 4. It's easy for her to engage into conflict, and I always saw the 7s as people engaging in conflicts and stuff like that. And I just don't have that. For me, it's hard being in a conflict situation. I want to get out. Like, where's the exit? Looking for the exit, But yeah, I don't look well after myself because I'm always putting other people's needs in front of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, boundary is a big issue here when it comes to group. Somehow, like if I don't set a boundary for myself before going into the group, I tend to do more than I should, and I'm not looking after myself. And then there's resentment. Like I want to do this, and then I don't want to do this at the same time, and I'm so resented. Like, why did I even get myself, or how did I even get myself here in the first place? Why did I put myself into this same pain again? And the thought of like, how do I get out of it? How do I get out of it but still look beautiful walking out of this whole that's tough, because I don't want to be seen like I am forsaking the group. But I also need to take care of myself. So there's always this going on, this tension going on, conflict within myself, and I don't like to be in a place. And for me to be able to take care of myself is actually before I say yes to any groups now, is to really think that, do I really want to be in there, and how much can I really contribute to it, and am I necessary in this group? And if not, then I would just decline so that I don't even put myself in there, because there's so many times when I've reached a certain stage of conflict, sometimes I just switch off and I can be irresponsible and I just exit the group without anything. And then that doesn't look good on me. So that has happened before in the past, but I'm just learning not to get into there in the first place.
Yeah. Quarantine is a perfect example for me. At the beginning of quarantine, I was literally the busiest human around. I had Zoom classes, I had cooking night, I had a movie club, I had like endless. I literally packed my schedule for the first 3 months. Then I just hit a wall and I canceled everything. And I basically was like,
Ooh, yes.
I can't do any of it. I'm out. I can't. I'm done. And then since then, it's been a process of like, okay, yeah, like Kai said, what do I really want to do? And part of it's just like actually going through the motion of being like, this thing popped up or this idea came into my head. Is this actually an idea that I want to pursue? Or is it just like an idea that I can let go of? But it's just been so fascinating to observe that over quarantine. And the self-preservation, I'm appreciating it more because slowing down, treating my body, eating healthy, like I'm like, oh, I get it. It gives me more energy. Oh, it actually feels better to take care of myself, which sounds so obvious, but like it doesn't always click as easily for me.
I do agree with you, Anna, because COVID as well was hitting a wall. I was very involved in an organization that will not name at this moment. It was Zoom meeting on Zoom meeting within the COVID time. And I had an opportunity to do some business stuff. And I thought to myself, I would really love to do business stuff, get into personalities, get into getting people's lives and making them understand how to go from A to B, because that's my passion. In that time, I just realized, but I can't do that if I don't free up my time. So I actually said no to a lot of things that I was actively involved in the organization. And once I did that, all the relationships with that actually I came to know as functional relationships. It wasn't deep relationships. All the relationships went. And that really, it got to me. It really got to me. It really hit me in the core. It's like, where's all the relationships that I thought I had? It was functional. It wasn't really, to the core depth of who I am and who they are as a person.
Yeah, I think the biggest growth for me, I always felt like I'm doing this alone because there's a lot of voices in my head as well, like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? But recently, this year, I actually formed another core group. No surprise there. Yeah, but I have another core group of 2 other 7s. So there are 3 of us and we are accountable to one another. And because we are all 7s and we are all like different, I'm social first, they are sexual first, and then they have self-preservation. We bounce it off each other, like, how do we approach certain things? And that really helped because I have like other 2 7s to help me to be my mirror and to be my lens as well. So that is actually part of my growth.
Wow, that's great. Wow. As you're saying that, I'm like, oh, I should start that group like that. That sounds
awesome. That's why I was excited about the podcast, for instance, is because now finally I can bounce off ideas. And I came in with the thing of I'm going to be as vulnerable as possible because someone needs to hear this. You know, because I didn't hear that from anyone else until I got to know the podcast and listen to the panel discussions. Like, oh, okay, so that's how it comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to that point, self-preservation and how it was in college, particularly for me, I really neglected myself and I was so stretched thin going out, being with different groups. And again, to your point of people hearing this, like I realized it was an avoidance. I was trying to get away from having to sit with, what do I want to do in my life? Like what's important to me? What are my values? I just was like, oh, I'll just go hang out with people and avoid all those kind of scary questions. But and obviously we all come to where we are for a reason, but I felt like I was escaping a bit for a while.
This is the thing that's interesting about sexual, social, and social sexual as the sequence, with the third being the self-pres, is that there's very little stop in that pair. It is almost, with all types, it's almost all go. And it's all in the realm of people. And so because the pattern and flow of energy is so familiar to the type that when they're in that, it feels normal. This is what gives me life. This is what I should be doing. And so when we're doing that and we have to do a little bit of self-pres, it feels so foreign and it feels so uncomfortable. But yet that's the very thing, as you're describing, that actually helps you. And what we are learning is that the neglected instinct, the little that we do to begin to bring it back in to us, it has disproportionate positive effect. You can work so hard in the social sphere and the sexual sphere, and it's great. But when you add a little bit of that self-preservation in there, there's something that happens to us where then we're actually more impactful, more effective in those spheres that, we love to be involved in. So I'm wondering if you've had any of those like awarenesses and learnings around, I am noticing the more I bring that in, it does have some positive effect and actually helps me in the social sphere.
I find that by quote unquote limiting myself, which can feel so horrible and painful at times, but by limiting myself, the things I do choose to go focus on, like those become limitless. So I'm able to fully invest in the spaces that are most important instead of sort of stretching myself across a bunch of things, but really going and being present, being intentional in the places that are most important to me.
for me personally, the self-preservation kind of creeps up on me, whether I know it or not. And during the COVID situation, there was a lot of online meetup with groups. And now with things relaxing in Singapore, there's a lot of face-to-face meetup with groups. I'm always constantly meeting up with groups 2 to 3 times a week. Because for my husband, that's not normal because he doesn't do that. But I do it quite often and it seems normal to me. But I was sharing with him, I was like, but I have this feeling that I want to be alone at the same time. And sometimes I feel that's healing for me. And so he's been really kind today. And he said, you know what, after this podcast, I'm going to bring the kids out and you can have the whole house to yourself for the rest of the day.
Nice.
And I actually looking forward to it because for once, I'm not going to schedule anything until later today. I'm meeting another group, but I do have a few hours in between for myself, not doing anything, just for myself. And that's healing for me. I do look forward to that. I want to be in that space.
Yeah, really good.
I think my wife plays a big role with helping me stay in check. If it was up to me, I'll be visiting people 7 days a week. It's no problem for me. I'm the social one. I want to go out. I'm the petrol. She's the brakes. Plain and simple. She likes the one-on-one attention. She likes to be just us, She wants to be unique. She doesn't want to be too much in groups, where she just disappears in it. So, that makes it an interesting dynamic for me. But I need to look more at the self-preservation. Some of the stuff does come in where I see I'm better at the budgeting. I'm better looking at some of the stuff at the house and just looking, do we have enough? So it's not like I do not have it at all. It's just when it comes to relationships, I don't have it. When it comes to people, that's where I need the help. That's where I need the breaks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, my partner's self-preservation is his first instinct, and it has been so helpful for me. I eat so many more vegetables than I ever did. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank the three of you so very, very much for having been on this podcast and for having brought such great insights into the 7 and the social instinct and the pairing of those two. Your vulnerability, your transparency, your depth, really, really good. Huge thanks to each of you.
And as a social 8, I related to so much of what you said. It really connected with me and made a lot of sense. But it was also neat to see little nuances. But yes, I really resonated with a lot of what you said. It was super helpful to hear those nuances, to have those distinctions, because what this season has given us is what we thought would be, really helping a lot of other people. And it's just teaching us so much as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for being our teachers, as well as a wider community, the wider Enneagram community, and people just trying to grow and understand each other. So thank you so much. It is amazing to have you, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
So thank you so much for joining us today and through this series. And make sure you sign up for our Live Instincts event on Wednesday, May 19th, as we start to look at what do we do with this now? How do we grow through this? Because information is not transformation. We want to take this information and use it to help create practical transformation in our lives. And we look forward to doing that journey with you and being a part of it. Make sure you are subscribed so you see the new episodes pop up whenever they come out. If you leave us a review on iTunes, it really helps people discover the show. It really helps the algorithm that points people towards this work. You can follow us on Instagram at Art of Growth and contact us about all of our work at www.theartofgrowth.org. But for now, my friends, may you relish in and be aware of the wider impact that you have. May you take joy in the fact that you are part of something bigger than yourself. May you know that even if you get off track, there is sanity in community that can be both an anchoring for your soul and the wind in your sails. Because we are all in this together, and you are a part of all of this. Grace and peace, my friends.